Found out from social media that my parents went to Hawaii with my sister and her fiance's family for her engagement party. They uninvited me, though the trip was paid for out of my pocket. So I blocked their bank card. I'm Carrie, and I was 4 when my life changed forever. That's when my sister Emily was born, and suddenly I became invisible in my own home. My earliest memories are filled with the sound of Emily's singing. By the time she was 3, she had already become the star of every family gathering, while I stood in the corner, holding plates of snacks I'd helped Mom prepare. Emily had this angelic voice that made everyone stop and listen. My parents, Tom and Linda, were convinced she'd be the next Mariah Carey. "Carrie, go help your sister practice her scales," Mom would say, not even looking up from her phone where she was recording yet another video of Emily's performance. "And make sure you've done the dishes first." I was 8 then, and Emily was 4. While she twirled around the living room in her pink tutu, I was learning how to use the washing machine because Mom was too busy coordinating Emily's singing lessons. "Why can't I go to Sarah's birthday party?" I asked one Saturday morning when I was 12. Mom rolled her eyes. "Because Emily has a performance at the community center, and we need you to help with her costume changes." "But I promised Sarah." "Don't be selfish, Carrie," Dad cut in. "Your sister needs you. She's got real talent." Unlike he stopped himself. But I knew what he meant. Unlike me. I remember the day everything changed. Emily was 11, and I was 15. She and her friends had gone to the mall without supervision. Something I'd never been allowed to do at that age. They spent hours at the ice cream parlor, ordering sundae after sundae, competing to see who could eat the most. The next morning, Emily woke up with a sore throat. It got worse quickly, developing into a severe case of strep that left her vocal cords damaged. The doctor said she might never sing the same way again. I was in the kitchen doing homework when they came back from the hospital. "This is your fault," Mom screamed at me. "You're her older sister. You should have been watching her." "But I was doing the laundry and cleaning the bathroom like you told me." "No excuses." Dad slammed his hand on the table. "You're grounded for a month. No phone, no TV, no nothing. Maybe that'll teach you to take responsibility." That night, as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, I made myself a promise. Someday, I'd build a life where I didn't have to live in anyone's shadow. I just had to survive a few more years in this house where I was nothing more than a servant and a scapegoat. The next 3 years passed in a blur of chores, blame, and quiet resentment. Every time Emily got into trouble, sneaking out, skipping classes, or borrowing Mom's credit card, somehow it circled back to being my fault. The acceptance letter from State College sat on the kitchen table between us, next to Mom's meatloaf. I'd chosen dinner time deliberately. They couldn't easily escape the conversation. "It's the most affordable option," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "The tuition is reasonable, and we don't have the money, Carrie." Dad didn't even look up from his plate. Emily snickered from her seat. "Maybe you should have developed some actual talents instead of just doing chores all day." "You could take out a loan for me," I pressed on, ignoring her. "I'll write you a receipt, promising to pay back every penny once I graduate and get a job. Please, this is important to me." Mom sighed that martyred sigh she'd perfected over the years. "Honey, we're not taking out any loans. College isn't for everyone. Why don't you look for a job at the mall? Or maybe that new cafe downtown? But I got a scholarship that covers part of the tuition. I just need help with the rest. I've researched everything, made a budget." "Enough." Dad's fork clattered against his plate. "We said no loans. End of discussion. Some people are meant for college, others aren't. Accept it and move on." I stared at my untouched dinner, fighting back tears. Through blurred vision, I saw Emily smirking, enjoying the show as always. That night, I called my best friend Rachel. We've been close since middle school, bonding over our shared love of math and our positions as outsiders, me because of my family situation, her because her Korean immigrant parents own the popular Golden Dragon restaurant downtown. "They won't help," I sobbed into the phone. "They won't even consider taking out a loan. All these years of straight A's, of doing everything right, and they won't even try." Rachel was quiet for a moment. "Come over tomorrow. My parents want to talk to you." The next evening, I sat in the restaurant's office with Rachel and her parents, Mr. and Mrs. Kim, after closing time. They'd known me for years. I'd spent countless afternoons doing homework in their restaurant, escaping my chaotic home. "We've watched you grow up, Carrie," Mrs. Kim said. "You're like second daughter to us." Rachel told us everything. Mr. Kim nodded. "We will pay your tuition." I started to protest, but he held up his hand. "You will work here part-time, after classes. Good wages, flexible schedule, pay us back slowly, no interest. This is investment in your future." After a while, I moved into my dorm room at State College. My parents barely noticed when I packed my things. They were too busy planning Emily's big piano recital, their latest attempt to find her a new talent to replace her lost singing voice. I started classes during the day and worked evenings at Golden Dragon, learning everything from waiting tables to managing inventory. The call came on a random Tuesday during my sophomore year. I was studying in the library when Mom's number flashed on my phone screen. For a moment, I just stared at it, my heart racing. We hadn't spoken in months. "Hey, sweetie," she said, sounding distracted. There was noise in the background, probably Emily practicing something new. "Just checking in. What have you been up to?" "I'm in college," I replied, waiting for the questions about money, about how I was managing without their help. "Oh, that's nice," she said vaguely. "Emily's getting straight A's in her advanced classes. We're so proud. She's really finding herself since, the voice thing." No questions came about how I was paying for school. They didn't care enough to ask, and I didn't volunteer the information. The conversation ended as quickly as it had begun, with Mom hung up. During my college years, I only went home for major holidays. Each visit was the same. Relatives crowded around our dining table while Emily held court and my parents beamed. I'd help in the kitchen, same as always, listening to the chatter from the other room about Emily's latest achievements. Thanksgiving of my junior year hit differently though. I was setting out the sweet potato casserole when Aunt Susan started asking about Emily's college plans. Mom proudly announced, "We've been saving for years. Our little star's education fund is all set. We've put aside enough for her to go anywhere she wants." I nearly dropped the casserole. The ceramic dish burned my hands through the oven mitts, but it wasn't as painful as the truth I was hearing. 2 years ago, they'd claimed poverty when I needed help. Now I knew, they'd been hoarding money all along, just not for me. That night, in my old bedroom, I called Rachel and cried. "They had the money," I whispered, huddled under my childhood blanket. "They just didn't think I was worth spending it on." "Then prove them wrong," she said firmly. "You're already doing it." She was right. I threw myself into my studies and my work at Golden Dragon. By graduation, I'd not only paid back every cent to the Kims, but had also learned every aspect of running a successful business. I'd worked my way up from waitress to shift supervisor to assistant manager, all while maintaining a 3.9 GPA. Mr. Kim called me into his office on my last day at the restaurant. "I have friend at Morgan & Chase Corporate," he said, sliding a business card across his desk. "They need someone smart, hardworking, someone like you." I told him about how you transformed our inventory system, increased efficiency by 30%. He's very interested. A week after graduation, I walked into my new office at Morgan & Chase wearing a suit I'd bought with my own money. My desk name plate read Caroline Mitchell, Junior Analyst. Within 6 months, I was leading my own team. By the end of my first year, I'd gotten 2 promotions and was managing projects that caught the attention of senior leadership. Christmas came around again, and something felt off the moment I pulled into my parents' driveway. The house was dark except for the living room window, no cars lined the street, and the usual elaborate decorations were missing. Mom answered the door in an old sweater instead of her usual holiday attire. "Emily's not coming?" I asked, stepping into the oddly quiet house. The familiar scent of Mom's traditional Christmas roast was noticeably absent. "She's celebrating with friends," Mom said, wringing her hands. Their families rented a cabin up in the mountains. Very exclusive. The dining room table, usually groaning under the weight of Mom's extensive holiday spread, held only a store-bought ham and some microwaved sides. No relatives bustled about. No Christmas music played. Dad sat in his armchair, looking older than I remembered. "We've had some setbacks," Mom finally admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. She glanced at Dad, who nodded slightly. "The investment your father made didn't pan out. We had to take out loans to cover the losses. Christmas with the whole family just wasn't in the budget this year." I watched them pick at their food. These people who'd once seemed so powerful, who'd controlled every aspect of my life. Now they looked small, defeated. Despite everything, something twisted in my chest. "Give me a minute," I said, pulling out my phone. I scrolled through delivery options. Thank God for restaurants that stayed open on Christmas. 20 minutes and several $100 later, I'd ordered a feast, prime rib, glazed ham, truffle mashed potatoes, roasted vegetables, 3 different pies. The food arrived in elegant packaging, filling the house with the rich aromas of a proper Christmas dinner. As we ate, I caught Mom eyeing my designer watch, the silk blouse that cost more than their monthly utility bill. "We've been thinking," she said carefully, sharing a look with Dad. "Since you're in such a good position now, maybe you could help us out. Just temporarily until we get back on our feet." I studied them over my wine glass. Part of me wanted to remind them of their words when I'd begged for college money. Some people are meant for college, others aren't. But looking at their worn faces, I couldn't do it. "I could set up an additional card on my account," I heard myself saying. "With a monthly limit." Mom's eyes lit up. "Oh, sweetheart, that would be a $1,000 a month," I said firmly. "No more." They nodded eagerly. It was more than they'd expected, though less than a week's pay for me now. A few days later, I had the card issued and delivered to Mom. They promised to be careful with it, to respect the limit. For several months, they kept their word. The charges were reasonable. Groceries, utilities, basic necessities. I barely noticed the money leaving my account. Sometimes, reviewing the statements, I'd see charges from the grocery store where I'd worked one summer during high school, trying to save for college. The irony wasn't lost on me. 2 years passed, and I foolishly thought things were getting better. The monthly allowance had created a rhythm to our relationship. Mom would call to chat about their expenses, and somehow that evolved into actual conversations. Or so I thought. Emily and I even started talking again, though her competitive streak hadn't changed. Every time I mentioned a work achievement, her smile would tighten. Her eyes would narrow just slightly. Telltale signs I remembered from childhood. "Senior project manager? That's nice," she'd say, in the same tone she used to dismiss my high school achievements. "I'm actually up for promotion at Wilson & Company. It's a smaller firm, but very exclusive." Not everyone can handle the pressure there. Mom and Dad couldn't stop talking about Emily's new boyfriend, James. "He comes from such good stock," Mom would gush during our monthly calls. "His parents owned that real estate company downtown." The monthly charges on Mom's card had stayed reasonable all this time. Groceries, utilities, the occasional dinner out. Normal things, expected things. I'd even started to feel good about helping them. Like maybe this financial support was healing our fractured relationship. Then came the Instagram post that shattered everything. "Paradise with my loves. Engaged Hawaii. Blessed," Emily's caption read. The photo showed her and James on a pristine beach, our parents and his beaming beside them. Mrs. Anderson, James's mother, wore a designer sundress. Mr. Anderson stood proudly next to his son, one hand on James's shoulder. My finger froze mid-scroll. When had this happened? Why hadn't they told me? The next post made my blood run cold. So grateful to Mom and Dad for making this magical engagement trip possible for everyone. They insisted on treating both families to this dream vacation. Best parents ever. Sponsored by Love. Something clicked in my brain. I opened my banking app, hands shaking. There they were, the charges on Mom's card, far exceeding the monthly limit I'd set. 6 round-trip first-class tickets to Honolulu. $12,400 Grand Wailea Resort. 3 ocean view suites for 7 nights. $18,600 welcome dinner at Morimoto. $2,800, couple spa treatments. $1,200 sunset sailing excursion. $1,600 private beachfront dinner arrangement. $3,500. They'd used my money to fund their secret family vacation, one I hadn't been invited to. They'd thrown an elaborate engagement celebration for Emily and her future in-laws, all while excluding the person who was actually paying for it. My hands were shaking so badly I had to try 3 times to dial Mom's number. 1 ring, 2 rings, 3. "Hello?" Mom's voice was breezy, casual. Hawaiian music played in the background, along with the sound of waves and clinking glasses. Laughter. I recognized Emily's distinctive giggle. "Where are you?" I kept my voice steady, professional, the same tone I used in difficult board meetings when dealing with hostile clients. "Oh, honey." She hesitated, the music growing fainter as if she was moving away from the party. "Your father and I just decided to take a little break. Get some rest. You know how hard things have been lately. A little break?" I pulled up the banking app again, my free hand clenching into a fist. At the Grand Wailea Resort? With Emily, James, and his entire family? "That kind of break costs over $40,000, Mom." "My $40,000. Silence. Then muffled voices. Mom was covering the phone, but I could still make out fragments. "She knows. What should I?" "Emily. Maybe you should." "Mom, why did you use my card to pay for everyone's trip? And why wasn't I invited to my own sister's engagement party?" More muffled conversation, then wrestling as the phone changed hands. When the new voice came on the line, Emily's words dripped with contempt. "Listen, Miss Executive," she smeared, "you're not needed here. You're not even family anymore, just a walking ATM. We don't want you here ruining everything with your little success story. Nobody wants to hear about your precious career while we're celebrating my engagement." The words hit like a physical blow, but I forced myself to stay calm. "That ATM just paid $20,000 for your little party. Another $20 for the flights and extras. That's my money paying for your perfect family moment. Yeah?" Emily laughed, harsh and cold. "Well, that's what you're good for, isn't it? You keep working your fancy job and will enjoy spending your money. It's the only thing you're useful for anyway. Always was, even when we were kids. At least now you're finally serving a purpose." The line went dead. I tried calling back immediately. No answer from Mom. Straight to voicemail. I tried Dad's number. Same thing. Emily's phone rang once. Before going to voicemail, she'd declined the call. Within minutes, Notification after notification popped up on my phone. User has blocked you on every social media platform we shared. My parents' profiles disappeared first, then Emily's. A single message came through from Mom before she blocked my number. We're all tired of your attitude and jealousy. Just leave us alone. You've ruined enough special moments for Emily. I stared at the message, something cold and hard crystallizing in my chest. My hands weren't shaking anymore as I opened the banking app again, this time navigating to the travel reservations section. Each click felt like breaking another link in the chain that had bound me to their abuse for so long. Click. The hotel reservations for 3 luxury ocean view suites, cancelled. Click. The couple's massage packages and sunset sailing excursions, cancelled. Click. The private beachfront dinner arrangements, cancelled. Click. The return first-class flight tickets for 6 people, cancelled. Click. Mom's card, permanently deactivated. I set down my phone and waited, imagining their faces when the hotel informed them their rooms weren't paid for, when they tried to charge something to the room and got declined, when they discovered their return flights no longer existed. 3 hours later, my phone exploded. Call after call lit up my screen. Mom, Dad, Emily, and numbers I didn't recognize with Hawaii area codes. The Anderson family, no doubt, wondering why their luxury vacation had suddenly turned into a nightmare. The messages started flooding in through every platform they'd unblocked me on. Mom, Carrie, please call us immediately. This is an emergency. Dad, fix this right now, young lady. You're embarrassing the whole family. Emily, you better make this right or I swear to God. Unknown number. This is James. My parents are furious. You need to reinstate those reservations. The tone shifted as the hours passed. Mom, sweetie, please. We can talk about this. Dad, we'll pay you back. Just help us out here. Emily, come on, Carrie. It's my engagement. Don't be so petty. James, my parents are threatening to call this whole thing off. I left them all unread, then systematically blocked every number and account. But not before taking screenshots. I had a feeling I'd need them. The notification came around midnight. Emily Mitchell has posted a new status. I can't believe my own sister would try to ruin the happiest moment of my life. She's always been jealous of my happiness, but this is a new low. Canceling our entire family's vacation out of spite? Who does that to their own sister's engagement celebration? Some people just can't stand to see others happy. Toxic family, heartbroken. The comments poured in immediately. Oh my God, that's horrible. What kind of sister does that? I always knew there was something off about her. She's just jealous because you're getting married first. Your poor parents must be so embarrassed. I had stayed quiet long enough. My fingers flew over the keyboard as I crafted my response. Let me tell you what really happened. My parents have been using my credit card for basic expenses, limited to $1,000 a month. Yesterday, I discovered they'd spent over $40,000 of my money to fund Hawaii vacation for Emily's engagement. They didn't ask. They didn't tell me. They didn't invite me. When I called to ask why, Emily told me I wasn't family, just a walking ATM. My mother's final message before blocking me: we're all tired of you. So yes, I canceled the reservations I never authorized. I canceled the return flights I never agreed to pay for. I stopped funding the vacation I wasn't welcome to attend. Here are the screenshots of every message. Here are the credit card statements. Here's the truth about your poor Emily and her ruined engagement party. Judge for yourselves who the toxic ones really are. The tide turned immediately. Comments shifted from condemnation to support. Oh my God, Emily, how could you? Using your sister's money while excluding her? That's cruel. Those poor Andersons getting caught up in this family's drama. Carrie, you did the right thing. Stay strong. The aftermath unfolded like a slow-motion train wreck. Through mutual friends and social media, I learned the full extent of the chaos I'd unleashed in Hawaii. My parents had to borrow money from 3 different friends just to book economy flights home. They'd been forced to check out of the Grand Wailea resort in front of all the other guests. Emily had thrown a tantrum in the lobby that ended up on TikTok. The real explosion came when the Andersons realized they'd have to pay for their own accommodations. They'd been promised a fully paid luxury vacation, only to discover they'd been caught in my family's web of lies. We trusted you, Mrs. Anderson apparently screamed at my mother by the pool. You said you were taking care of everything. Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? Emily, true to form, made everything worse. Oh, stop being such greedy beggars, she'd shouted back. If you can't afford a few nights in Hawaii, maybe your son isn't good enough for our family after all. James had stood there in shocked silence before finally speaking. You're right about one thing, he'd said quietly. Someone isn't good enough for someone's family. He'd pulled the engagement ring off Emily's finger and walked away with his parents. The engagement was over. Emily's dream wedding canceled before it even began. All because they couldn't resist the temptation to steal from me one last time. A week after they returned home, the knocking started. Carrie, honey, Please open the door. Mom's voice, trembling through the solid wood of my apartment door. We need to talk. We know we messed up. Dad's voice joined in. Just give us a chance to explain. I sat on my couch, not moving, barely breathing. The TV was muted, but the blue light flickered across my face as they continued to plead. The knocking continued for 20 minutes before they finally gave up. I later heard they'd tried to get my building manager to let them in, claiming it was an emergency. He'd called to check with me first, and I'd told him not to let them up again. Rachel came over that night with takeout from Golden Dragon. We sat on my balcony, looking out over the city lights. Your post got shared in some family trauma support groups, she said, picking at her noodles. A lot of people are calling you their hero, standing up to toxic family members, setting boundaries. I thought about all the years I'd spent trying to earn their love, trying to prove I was worth something. All the money I'd given them, hoping it would finally make them see me as family instead of just a resource to be used. You know what's funny? I said, watching a plane disappear into the night sky. For the first time in my life, I don't care what they think of me. I don't care if they're sorry. I don't care if they change. I'm just done. Sometimes the hardest part of growing up isn't learning to stand on your own. It's learning when to walk away. I'd spent my whole life in Emily's shadow. Now it was time to step into the light.